display capture. Oh, I mean, I just needed help setting this up. You can fucking go on with your day if you want. uh, what, can you guys hear me in chat? Okay. Um, um, go on the Geo. Scoundrel doesn't hear a thing. Sorry, bro. Now you guys can hear. Okay. So I'm gonna explain a couple of things that I had mentioned in the past that probably a lot of people were confused about um off of just the image. So starting off with like the little whiteboard image I had mentioned yesterday. What I was trying to explain is how sometimes you can get a different delta adjusted exposure as opposed to a raw adjusted exposure, and how the skew can be different on either. Um, yes, it is Oppenheimer. I changed my name. It's now Distribution Dan. Um, but so this using this method, you can find the average mean of both distributions, and that's what you're trying to solve for, ideally. Um, how to do so is simply by, let's say we have a normal distribution, right? That looks like this, and the mode would typically be right around here. And it would be kind of hard to define the mean. Well, now let's say we have, use a different color, um, a I don't know, positive skew, negative skew. It could be either, right? Don't just take the fact that I'm using one type of skew here as like, you can't use it for both, but you can. So, uh we'll draw something like this. And obviously the distributions are slightly different. The green is the mode is distributed towards the left, and the mode here is distributed towards the middle. Now, if we take now, you don't have to do this mental math at all. You don't even have to do the math in general. You could just kind of eyeball it, obviously, from like this standpoint, right? Um, right here, obviously, it an average mean would be somewhere in between this area, right? So clearly, from this point on, if we're moving down in price action, price would eventually come back up, and you could look for a rally of some sort. Now, if you're interested in the math portion of this, though, um, by the way, Sheen, does this record automatically? Right? It does, right? Okay. Yeah, so if you're interested in the math portion of this at all, I'm using Pearson's first and second coefficient in order to get the average of the two means. So we're gonna start with uh this term called L moments. Moments. L moments. Can I get an L moments in chat? Thank you. So basically what L moments is it's a comparison of different skews. That's ideally just what it is. So comp is what we're gonna put here. Um, so we got L moments and we're trying to get the L moments of the two different skews. So first equation would be mean minus mode divided by one standard deviation. Then our second, so this is step one, and step two would be, this is for our second distribution, would be, um, mean, fuck, oh no, minus median and you get divided by standard deviation. Um, so now that we have these two equations, all you would simply do is plug in the decimal amounts of distribution one's mean mode divided by the standard deviation. Then for the second one, you would do the same, plugging in the decimal amounts for the mean, median, then multiply it by 3, and then divide it by uh, standard deviation. So, now, are there any questions on those steps thus far, if anyone is interested at all in this at all? No, no questions? Okay, that is okay. Um, so basically, uh, I am interested, thanks. Y3, that's just how the equation works. That's I'm honestly just solving equations. This was made by some dude with the last name of Pearson. I'm just following his formula because it's accurate. So um, you'd have to ask the creator of the formula Y3. But what is the mode? Okay, so uh, where is 1 and 2 on the chart? Okay, how do you use this information? Okay, so we're gonna start with the first question I got, which is, what is a mode? So mode, a standard deviation is divided up into three different types of uh variations, I guess. So let's say we have a normal distribution. The mode is the most amount of randomized aggregate data in the middle. So you could just say mode is the middle. Um, so hold on. Sorry, my sister's texting me. So, so we have the mode, and then the mean is typically, can you do an example with the, look, this heart emoji's in the way with the two right now. Yeah, let me pull up the chart actually. Um, so, uh, can I copy and paste on here? I can. I don't want to scale to fill, but how do I make this bigger? Alright, well, we're not going to make it bigger. So this is delta adjusted, and this is raw. Uh, oh shit, I think I copy pasted it twice. Alright, oh, this is how you make it bigger. Alright, cool. So we have these and these. So, crayons. Um, alright, so we have two different variations right now. I should probably move this out of the way. Maybe like right here, right here. So, the current skew should look a little something like this, where the mode would be in the middle, the median would be the tail area. Um, Mode, median, and then this would be something like this, right? So the distributions are slightly different. Mode being the middle, or you could count the AOY as the mode if you really want to. So like you just fucking mode, mode, and then now how we get an average median, this is probably going to be skewed more towards the right, so somewhere around here. Um, and basically you would get the decimal amount if you want to go the math route, right? I would just stop here if I'm just a trader that doesn't give a fuck about the math. right? Or you're just trying to capture a large move and not a specific move. And what I mean by specific is specifically having a target in mind or specifically having an exit. Well, typically me, I like to cash settle a lot of my contracts. So I have no target in mind a lot of the time, and I'll just have it cash settle at the end of the day, either for zero or for a lot. But um, so you can just stop here and decide that okay, well, the what is this? The raw exposure is more I think it's negatively skewed. Um, and the tail is towards, or the larger, especially this tail seems to be on the larger side, but it's towards the right side of the distribution. Whereas the if you were to get an average mean of the two, you could plug in all the decimal amounts. If you hover over the different gex bars, you can get the decimal amounts, and you would be able to plug those in. So like if we were to plug in the decimal amount for the median here, right? It would you could add up this strike, this strike, this strike, this strike, this strike, right, where the mode tends to stop. Add up all those decimal amounts, plug them into the mean, subtract it by the mode. You could take the AOI or the inside 76% of the information. This is a really bad represent, fucking like this. So you would take all these bars, add it and then add it and then divide it by one standard deviation. So, one second. So, sorry, I have to answer this. So, okay. So, you would add it and then divide it by one standard deviation, and then you get your sum amount. So, whatever X amount of sum is, and then you get your, you would do the same with, uh, the mean here subtracted by the median. So you would plug in the same decimal amounts, uh, or add up all the decimal amounts, plug them into the mean, subtract it, add up all the median amounts, plug them into the median. Yes, it is 0.68. Uh, yes, yeah. So then you would divide it by 0.68, and then you get your sum amount. So X sum, and then you would average the two. So whatever the average is between the two. And then you get your target. Ta-da! So you take sum of equation one, sum of equation two, get the average between the two. There's a lot of different ways you can get the average with basic math, um, division, subtraction, a lot of basic ways. Um, and then you get, can I fucking, hold on, 1 second. Let me get like a, here we go. Hell yeah. Ta-da. Answer, which is something that should be in a decimal amount. So let's just say, for example, the answer was 2.3 or some shit, right? Now we would go search for that decimal amount in the exposures and get your target for the day. Now, again, this is just a math class just to show you guys how it's done. You don't have to do it this way. You don't have to do the math at all. In fact, I'm looking for a way to do it for you on the dashboard and have all this math already done for you so you can get a target in mind anyways. Or so like, for example, right, my idea for this is creating some type of legend at the top or at the top left or top right of the gamma exposure charts, right? And then you would get a target. Yeah, there's calculators online for that shit too, honestly. I don't know why I'm doing this all by hand. I could have probably just pulled one of those up, but um well, quick and dirty way would have just been to stop it here. Just eyeball it. I eyeball everything. I don't think you need to be super exact in trading personally to be a successful trader. You don't need to know the decimal amount of every target. You don't need to do any of that to be a successful trader. Shit, like could just look at the two, kind of eyeball an average, and then all of a sudden you have a decent target so long as it's enough points away from the current spot price, right? Don't fucking like take a long or a short if it's like 5 points away though. Like there's common sense in that I think, but yeah, you could stop here and just be I'm just showing you that in order to get the difference between the two, yeah, in order to get the difference between the two, all you have to do is look at the two different types of skews and get the average of both. That's baseline what I'm trying to show you here. And if you want to do that to an exact decimal point, you would use this equation, but you don't have to. That's the whole point of this math class though, is to show you the math. Otherwise it wouldn't be a math class. But um yeah, so eyeball it. We can stop there. I think that's good enough. Um, but that's how I typically uh trade using Skew. So I'm getting an average of all of these. If it's different, if it's not, obviously you don't need to, or if it's even slightly different, you don't need to. You kind of get the point as you're moving along. Um, but So, is the skewness model used for raw skew adjusted or delta adjusted? Asking because of the different data they give. Is the skewness model used for raw skew adjusted and delta adjusted? So the raw skew adjusted is based on volatility actually. So no, it's slightly different than this actual equation, the skew adjusted form. Because there's skew in a lot of different things, right? Skew is just a general umbrella term, but skew can be used in volatility, or it's typically used in volatility actually. But it can be used in just about anything. Uh, I mean, I was looking at a report the other day that was showing me the skew in corn futures. So, and I like real talk, like actually, I know I used to make a lot of jokes about actual corn futures, but uh, I looked it up because I'm curious. Um, but so the actual skew is slightly different than the skew adjusted formula in the dashboard is different than this actual equation. Um, but and the skewness model is not used in the delta adjusted form either. The delta adjusted form is a completely different equation regarding delta itself. So that's the difference though between the two of skew adjusted and delta adjusted. One's taking into account delta, one's taking into account volatility. Yeah, no problem. Um, but I think I had some other questions here. Where is one and two on the chart? Did that? How do you use it? So how you use this information again is just to kind of eyeball the average between the two. So you can get a target in mind for the day, because a lot of times people get confused with delta adjusted and raw skew or raw gamma exposure being different, and they take that as a means to not trade when in reality you can actually come up with a trade in if you're averaging the two to get a target in mind. So but I'm gonna try to automate this process a little bit on the actual dashboard uh, to maybe define a target between the two, or something. Yeah, no problem. Um, I know I don't really go live all that often, but when I do, I try to show a lot of what I'm doing, typically on a day-to-day basis. Um, so, do you like girls? Nah, Math is the only girl for me. She is very beautiful to me. Um, but yeah, there's a couple other questions I think in chat from a while back that were like, do more stuff on Skew. Um, Honestly, Skew's not that complicated. Um, it's I mean, sure, there's way more than actual three types of distributions, right? There's unimodal, there's bimodal, there's trimodal, it goes on, right? Depending on the sample size of the data, right? So if you were to get it goes without saying, right? Unimodal, bimodal and trimodal can be a thing, or fucking trimodals and can be like this too, I guess. So there's a lot of different types of distributions, but as long as you know the basics, you should be all right. And most of the time, or more often than not, the skewness in a lot of different data is universally the same most times. Only until you're starting to get a large sample size of data, the distributions tend to change. So, per se, if you're taking, does delta adjusted change towards the end of the day? I mean, they're always ever changing, right? So yes, it does change towards the end of the day. Is there like if you have a more specific aspect to that question, I guess, like in ways that it changes, because everything changes, it all changes towards the end of the day, towards the beginning of the day, towards the middle of the day. um so there's a lot of different ways to word that. Yeah, it does do that though, for sure. um but yeah, I mean, that's kind of the basis of the image I was drawing the other day on the whiteboard. um so basically, the average between the two, and for your terms of endearment, is referred to as non non uh what was it? Non paramatic. Yeah, I'm not a good speller, but paramatic skew. And that's basically what you get here when you solve for the both types of distributions. The average between the two distributions, you get non-paramatic skew. Um, To me, it seems like Delta adjusted lost pulling. Well, yesterday was an issue with the dashboard in general, so I wouldn't take yesterday as part of the sample size, but um, possibly. We had a little bit of a memory issue with the exposure. Actually, just the dashboard in total yesterday. Too many of you motherfuckers online. It's all your fault. Using it too much. Um, so by the way, this was positive skew. I don't know if I said that. I might have said negative. Positive skew. That's crazy. 9 windows is insane. At one point, I really only had like, actually, I don't know. I didn't really. I have it like on automatic. I have Sheen has like 6 game exposure windows. I think that's kind of crazy too. But everyone's got a way of figuring stuff out. I typically some people tell me my methods are almost too lazy, but I say if you're trying too hard to trade, you're doing it wrong. Um, so, um, any other questions on skew? Again, very basic knowledge. Positive skew, negative skew. Should probably get rid of that. Oh, hell nah. All right. Uh, positive skew, negative skew, unimodal, bimodal. Um, if you're seeing something like this for the first time, again, just take the basic knowledge that you already have on how to understand what unimodal is, and get the average of two different skews. And typically, it'll give you the guiding light of what the mean is for a bimodal, which is typically either on either side. Or a tail will only be on either side. You have a 50-50 chance of getting it right. Uh, Technically, on some days, we are looking at two different skews per set of data. Do you use both sides? No, I mean typically I'll only use delta adjusted unless it's like miles apart in difference. Um, right? Like if I can normal exposures are showing something like this, and then delta adjusted is showing literally the complete opposite or something. Then I'll try to get like an average, which actually this becomes a little bit harder, which actually leads me to have to do something like this. And I'm a old-fashioned type of guy, and I'll actually write it out on a notebook and do the math. Um, you can use a calculator though, I'm sure. So don't do it because of the I've learned better with pen and paper. I have three notebooks at the office, so I'm constantly writing in those. But yeah, so trying to get an average mean between the two. Use my TI-83. Dude, I still have I think a TI-83 from one of my ex-girlfriends that gave it to me. She ain't getting that back. I mean, I don't like girls. I like math. Uh, but yeah. So that's how you do the whiteboard shit that I posted in chat the other day. Um, Let me know if you need more information on shit like that. Any curious questions? Because I know I'm gonna fucking get some as soon as I close this stream. What is the target today with raw? Oh, buddy, we're doing our best to stay away from signaling as Traderlink in total. So I can't exactly do that, but I showed you how to do that. So let's put it into action. Actually, today you're kind of getting a positive and negative skew on either charts, so this is one of those difficult situations. But generally, we can see there's a clear mean to the upside on raw exposure, and then actually, yeah, and then there's I wouldn't say anything, but I would say be be wary of puts is what I would say. Uh, how about distributions from negative gamma? It's the same thing, just flipped. So you would just flip the distributions right side up if that helps you think better. But like if you're getting something like this, uh, and like this, you would just inverse it. So like it'd literally be the same exact thing, just with negative numbers. So like if you're actually doing the math, it would just be negative decimal amounts that you're plugging into the equations here in order to get the same mean really. But uh the thing is in a negative exposure environment, um and this is specifically with gamma exposure, this isn't with any other type of exposure or any other type of data set or anything. Um the way market makers place their orders, right? So, if we're talking about a positive exposure environment, the reason why returning to the mean works in a positive exposure environment as opposed to a negative is because they have buy orders and hold on, let me use colors. They have buy orders and sell orders on either side, which put us in a range of back and forth. So the idea of us moving up in price and then returning back to the mean is more likely, or moving down in price and returning back to the mean is more likely in a positive exposure environment for the way that stops are placed. Um, and that's why this works. Uh, and that's why this is even a thing. But in a negative exposure environment, right, we have sell orders placed below the underlying price and buy orders placed above the underlying price. So what this does with price action is if we're moving up and we move past a certain point in exposure, we move further up and exponentially higher. Now, if we're moving down in a negative exposure environment, which is more often than not the case, and we move below a certain price point, we move even lower. So that's why a negative exposure environment, what this leads us to do is have to worry about more so Vana. Vana. That's Vana. That fuck. Vana. So this creates a new type of exposure that market makers need to hedge against, which is Vana exposure and their rise in volatility, right? Because of the way that moves are exacerbated in a negative exposure environment. So I should declutter this, but uh, large movements in the underlying price add to an increased implied volatility, which also increases the exposure amount of Vana. Ta-da! And now you know how these things are placed. And you know why reversion tactics work in a positive environment as opposed to a negative environment. Ta-da! Cool? Thumbs up? Thumbs down? Gio, you suck? Gio, get off the stage? Bro, my mic's dying. Hold up. Oh, hell yeah. Okay, so, you are so cool. Thank you. That means a lot. Um, so, yeah, that's why this shit works. Dog. I'm gonna get rid of all this now, and then we're gonna start from scratch. Where our eardrums get blown out. Oh yeah? You want me to punch my fucking monitor right now? Spit. So we wouldn't use skew in a negative gamma environment. We would use Vana. Bruh, I just skewed. I'm gonna have to use that one. Uh, so yeah, we wouldn't use skew. You can use skew in a negative exposure environment. Just be wary that that's a case that can happen, and the chances of reverting to the mean are more likely in a positive exposure environment. That doesn't mean that they're guaranteed. That just means they're more likely. We deal in probabilities when we're dealing with standard deviations, right? When you're talking about probabilities, I forget the actual percentage amounts, but the mode is 76% chance or some shit. I don't know them off the top of my head because I'm not an exact nerd. I'm just a kind of nerd. Um, uh, your fave is How to Train a Dragon. Yeah, dude, honestly. Uh, but yeah. So you don't have to I mean, you can use skew in a negative exposure environment. I mean, naturally, now that you know this, you're going to be using skew like regardless. Just naturally looking at the exposure amounts, you're gonna just visualize it. So there's no going back now. Sorry, buddy. There's no going back. Um, so yeah, I mean, just don't go with the same concept that if we move down towards the lower or upper standard deviations that we're going to revert back to the mean on a negative environment. Don't go with that thinking that it's going to happen all the time. Just it's more likely than not going to happen in a positive exposure environment, and that's why I like positive exposure environments a lot more. Um, that's why I like positive exposure environments a lot more because the probability of reverting back to a mean and the fact that we know that it's more likely than not going to happen makes the market predictable. And when you're trying to look for a strategy in the market, you want it to be predictable in order to continuously make money, and that's why it works. So this goes without saying that uh that I guess would be my bread and butter setup if I was trading zero DTE options. I'm not saying to trade zero DTE options because typically I don't actually do that all that often. I'm just saying that uh, you can. Um, trying to word that as carefully as I possibly can, but uh, yeah, I think I typically try to look for stable markets in general, right? So stability is in positive exposure environments. Um, so when you're looking for stability for say spreads or something, right? I wouldn't enter a volatility spread in a positive exposure environment because volatility doesn't tend to be exacerbated enough. Unless you're looking for a crazy black swan event of the such. Because if you're in a stable market and then all of a sudden something fucking crazy on the news happens, World War III, implied volatility jumps higher than it would in a negative exposure environment, going from positive to negative in a flip of a switch. And obviously we can't call for that. So I'm just, it goes without saying that, random variables can change the outlook of a lot of different things, and this doesn't account for that. But it's a good enough way to determine highly probable trades if you're on the zero DTE spectrum or you're on the spread spectrum, right? So if you're trying to look for spreads in a positive exposure environment, now you can realize what the tops and bottoms of the market are, and then just fucking uh, you know, place a spread that doesn't go above or below a certain price action, collect premium if you want. That's why but if you're like a fucking, zero DTE madman and want a 1000% return, negative exposure environments might be your cup of tea, right? Because if moves get exacerbated enough and fucking launch it after a certain level, the premium amounts go crazy. So there's different ways to play it, but to each their own, I suppose. Now 26 of you know how to trade this shit. Um, I feel attacked. Nah, man, I'm not attacking anyone. Yeah, I mean yesterday again, fucking dashboard wasn't up, so very hard to kind of do shit in general. Yeah, and then it also had that very random variable. So, a lot of different things that happened that are just out of your control sometimes. So, uh anyways, um any other fucking I'm gonna draw smiley faces. Uh Whoa, what the hell? Happy birthday. Oh man. Um, but yeah, dudes. Um, um, I think that's it. Um, if there's no other questions or anything, probably gonna just go back to bed, smoke some. Does Vega have a skew we can use if it's similar to Gamma? Okay, so this is something I'm going to explain. Everything has skew. My cereal bowl has skew. My spoon has skew. Everything has skew. Um, you can use skew in anything because all it is distributing random data across a controlled environment. Now, there's different types of distributions to take in mind. There's oodles of them. There's fucking Gaussian distribution. There's uh fucking asymmetrical distribution. There's gamma specific distribution. There's distribution for just about anything. And that's because there's there that's actually correct. Skew has skew sometimes. There is a skew for a skew. I'm not even lying. There is skew. Skew has skew. Um, that is not a lie. Anyways, um, everything has skew. So it's just dependent on how it correlates with actual market movements, right? That's the only reason why positive exposure works, right? And that's why we're able to define skew in positive exposure environments because there's a minimum and the maximum of the data set plot. Now, um, it's skew isn't per se the reason why markets go up and down. It's just defining uh what where large orders are being placed, I guess, in to an extent. Uh, what's the skew of LeBron's line? That shit is acute. Wait, that's the acute's right? Fuck. I forget my triangles. Anyways, um uh isn't Vana the Vega skews? Yeah, technically. Yeah, most definitely. Uh, skew moves differently across different data sets for sure, right? So like a Vana exposure data set, let's just say this is the underlying price. Um, let's say this middle line is the underlying price. So a gamma exposure distribution can only be like this, or like this, or like this, right? You can only like a gamma exposure can only be this or flip down to the downside. So like this, or like this, or like this, right? But if we're talking about Vana exposure, now we can get like this, right? Or it can be flipped. It could be fucking like this. Like this. Infinity. Whoa, wait a second. We might be onto something here. Anyways, uh, so Vana exposures distributions are just a little bit different. Now, there's different distributions for different types of data sets. Sorry, I guess I worded that wrong. Is Vega's distribution same as Gamma? No, Vega's distribution um is not like Gamma. Gamma is Gamma specific due to the effect of uh delta increasing, I guess. So, the reason why that there's large orders placed on either side of the distributions is due to gamma and delta increasing as the underlying price moves, right? So if the underlying price moves up, the delta of a certain side of their hedge goes up, right? If it goes up enough, they need to sell. So sell, right? Um, if this order block, for example, if it were to go down enough, uh, their hedge, and typically this is thought of as put sides going up, specific put sides, right? Certain puts have positive, negative delta amounts, but um, this would cause a rise in order to even out the exposure. Now, um, this is what causes that return to mean distribution that we talked about earlier. Now, if we're talking about something like uh, fucking charm exposure or some shit, right? That has a completely different effect because of because of how it accumulates a large amount of delta. So, charm is a little bit different. Its distribution moves like some shit like this, and as the days pass, right? We'll use this as an expiry thing. So EXP, right? As days pass, the delta increases and or decreases dependent on the positive or negative relationship that charm has. Uh, so um, the skewness can still be used just in a different way. We don't currently support that way, but you can still use charm exposures total aggregate amounts to get an idea of the type of sentiment that it's bringing along with it. But if you were to, for example, plot this, the x-axis would be an EXP date calendar, right? And the y-axis would be the underlying. So we'll use SPX in this case. So if we're moving along this line, the deltas may increase or decrease, and then you could get a sort of relationship type of thing. So if this were a negative, or this is positive, we'll say, in a positive relationship, uh let me think. Sell orders and then buy orders are right here. Sorry. And then in a flipped relationship, so in a negative relationship that charm has, we'll do it on this side. Um, it's the complete opposite. So it's sell orders and then buy orders, right? And that's because the total aggregate amount of exposure, right? This is positive, total aggregate amount. This is negative, total aggregate amount. Um, this creates a bullish type of pressure on the market as deltas increase, and then a negative type of pressure on the market as deltas decrease, and then same with this shit. So, it would be different with this. It would be like a fucking balancing act. So, um, but that's how different types of distributions work with different types of exposures. Um, Now, if we were to, uh, that's why you can't like just chalk up the fact that we're utilizing gamma exposure and its skew amounts as the same as everything else because everything moves differently. As time passes, deltas decrease or increase depending on the type of positioning for charm. For volatility, right? As volatility increases or decreases, the deltas increase and decrease as well. For uh, gamma exposure, because it's directly related to the actual underlying movement of the stock, it's different, right? Because we can clearly see that the stock is moving up or down and then returning back to this fucking linear distribution in the middle. Um, and that's due to the fact that it's moving in the first place. That's due to this fact that it's moving in the first place and decreasing and increasing in deltas. Um, Sorry, I fucking uh, so yeah, that's how that shit works. Feel me? Um, there's a lot to this shit, honestly. If you really want to get deep into it, the only reason I'm this far deep is because I love it. Um, Brother, you guys are seeing all my messages. Guys, don't look. Um, yeah, no, it's a lot, dude. It's tough. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. It's a lot. Bruh, how do I mute my shit? Can I just delete it? Everyone look. Everyone look. Hold on. I'll open my task manager. Close the tabs, Gio. Close the tabs. Ow, you can turn notification on for the app windows. Oh shit. For real, for real? No, yeah, no, it's definitely worth it because this brought me into a whole new thing, right? Like I trade for myself regarding the data. I used to do this shit manually. Imagine manually. Back in my day, we had to pull the data by ourselves. Um, so back in my day, we didn't have this shit on an automatic 1 second pull rate that you guys do. I had to go directly to my CBOE dashboard, pull the CSV file, import the CSV file, get the whole data plot, and by that time, it's already changed. Ah, man, those it was rough. But that's the whole reason why this dashboard's even a thing right now. Because honestly, it's more for me than it is for you guys. I trade with it. So yeah, that's ideally why we even started this shit in the first place. Um, but yeah, dude, it's rough. Um, but yeah, definitely worth it. In order to get a better view on the market. I mean, who else do you know that trades in this specific format aside from people that actually work for people that make money, you know? Like fucking I hate the word hedge fund. I feel like they're annoying, but um, applications in the apps window. Oh shit, you're right. You're absolutely right. Um, damn, dude, it's already been 59 minutes on stream. What the hell? Yeah, no problem, dude. I can do this more often. I think if you guys are willing to like wait for fucking 9 a.m. I there ain't no way in hell I'm waking up at 6:30. Ain't no way, dude. Not to trade, not for no one. Not waking up at 6:30. You don't need to wake up at 6:30 to make money. Don't need to. Um, that's something. That's the only reason why I'm even fucking doing this. Because I want to prove to people that you don't need to fucking trade in the morning. But if I brought you coffee? But there's no need. There's no need. You know? Like, what if I told you the probability of you actually being correct is higher at the end of the day than it is at the beginning of the day? What if I said that? Because it's true. Boom. Um. Uh. 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 Yeah, no problem, man. Sorry, I'm reading Discord as well as the chat. Different strategy, negative, positive, skew, infinity. Wait a minute. Yeah, no problem, man. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Continue. Explain what? Explain why it's highly probable to make more money at the end of the day than it is at the beginning of the day. It's simple. There's more data being stored at the throughout the day for the current day for the current day. So the probability of being correct is higher towards the end than it is towards the beginning, right? If you're fucking directly taking a trade at 6:30 a.m. in the morning when market first opens, there's no data being populated in the beginning other than ES futures, right? That's the only thing to go off of. Why wouldn't you want to have more? Um, so that's just how the cookie crumbles, man. Don't hate the player, hate the game. Um, but yeah, I get a lot of people that uh not like people that I used to trade with and still trade with sort of kind of today. I don't even consider myself really a trader anymore. I'm more so like I determine uh something that's going to happen and the probability of it happening and I take a bet upon it. And that's it. I don't consider that really trading anymore. I feel like trading is more so associated with actual gambling than it is uh, taking data, understanding why it works. And once you understand why it works, then it's really not so much a guess, right? Because you have concrete evidence as to why a trade might work out or why a trade might not work out. Um, and you just place a bet upon that evidence. And that's really all I'm doing. Daily, and I even make my success more so relevant by using spreads and different types of capturing different types of moves. Actually, more so than not now, due to a lot of oh, not now, but previous to this large all-time high run up, is I used to take a lot more volatility spreads, which would help me profit more so on the fact that volatility is increasing and not so much the underlying price moving back and forth. Um, so at that point, you're not even trading based on the price moving up and down. You're just trading based on increase in volatility. Um, so yeah, I think once you learn how to use data, you kind of get a better understanding of the market. You understand why it moves. Again, all of this data and shit, or at least the options exposure stuff, is really, really powerful when the options market cap actually gets to an extreme amount. What I mean by that is when there's an actually, I'm planning on making a little bit of a little bit of an indicator for that. Um, I have it in my notes somewhere. Uh, if anyone's a developer, hit me up. We got a few that are pending. Just checking out some people's skill sets and shit. Um, because I want to make these tools and stuff. I think I got a pretty good one for understanding the options market cap and when it's more relevant to be relying on exposure models and when it's less relevant to be relying on exposure models because there is a point in time where the options market cap isn't fucking, massive and exposures don't really have an effect on the underlying price and more so different types of markets do in that case hasn't happened anytime recently in the last I don't know maybe like 2 years 3 years I want to say actually probably since 2020 I would say is the options market cap has been running shit most of the time but there's a indicator I have in mind. It's utilizing delta exposure and fuck, what was it? Delta exposure and the impact of certain exposures. You kind of get like a sum turns into a percentage, and then that percentage being closer to 100% means the impact of options is greater than anything else on the market and the percentage being lower or closer to zero relays that the options market is actually less effective or not being or it isn't as uh it doesn't move the market as much if it's closer to 0%. So I'm trying to make that a thing, which would be fucking sick, right? That's what I'm saying. Thanks, guys. Anyways. I think I'm gonna close the stream here if there's no more questions. Um, I'm gonna get on with my day. Yeah, the stream will be viewable later. Actually, this guy's probably not in the chat. Uh, yeah. Um, I can make it viewable later. Um, so yeah, I stress to not trade the open personally. This shit's whack. You're better off getting sleep and making a better trade towards the end of the day. Personally, how I trade, to each their own. So I can do what you want. Um, and you know, glad I taught you guys skew and shit. So, um, we can learn more of that stuff later. Uh, thanks you. Your math equations are hot. Thank you. Skew and shit. Hell yeah. Uh, yeah, I mean, that's what we're all trying to do, right? Just trying to understand the market. I feel like that's just human nature to understand things. Once you once you understand things, then it just becomes boring, and then you don't want to do stuff anymore. So don't ever get to that point. Always try to uh learn more and more because you know, human nature is to get as much knowledge as possible and then fuck it up immensely by